Hello to all the comic fans, Marvel geeks, and all the nerds in between. Welcome to another episode of the Vigilante Vibes podcast, where we talk all things Marvel, along with other fandoms, but without the toxicity that's taken up way too much space in each and every fandom. I'm your host, Megan Nicole, and we're here to have another episode of Elevating the Nerdy Voices of the Rainbow, where we lift up the voices of the LGBTQ plus communities. Today, joining me, I have a very special guest. They are a geek therapist, and I'm so excited to talk about what they do. Please welcome Adam.
Great. Thank you for having me, Megan.
Thank you for coming on. I'm so excited to get to know you.
I'm excited to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, like you said, my name's Adam. I'm in Florida currently, which is a lot of fun in this day and age working with LGBTQ issues. I'm actually a career changer. I started work in the film and television industry, moved to Florida to teach, got my PhD in media psychology because I was really interested in researching how media impacts us and how we impact it. And then the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in 2016, right?
Yeah,
That you're
I
right.
think so.
I should know that, but my brain just completely went blank. But anyway, after the Pulse nightclub shooting, I decided I wanted to help find different ways of helping people and helping the community over just researching. And so I went back to school to get my clinical mental health counseling degree and found geek therapy in that process. And I often say that my college gave me permission to be a counselor, but geek therapy gave me permission to be the counselor I want to be. And so that's where I am today as a geek therapist, is this kind of long, windy narrative road that's all connected.
I love that. And it was 2016, I checked.
Oh, cool.
I love it. There needs to be so much more therapy in the world, but being a geek therapist, that's such a great way to be able to relate to clients on such a whole new level. Can you tell me more a little bit about being a geek therapist?
Sure. Yeah, it's exactly as you said. It's about reaching clients on a less academic level. I found that, and I'm not alone in this. The geek therapy community found, I should say, when we can connect people with their interests, they're more likely to remember the things that they're working on or the things that we are working on them with. So I often joke that I'm quoting Freud. I'm sorry, I'm not quoting Freud. I'm quoting Iron Man, right? So it's looking for those things that the client enjoys so that they can go out in the world and work on those coping skills or work on their trauma outside of our sessions using the things that they like. And I've had clients tell me that they didn't realize therapy could be fun. It's hard at times, but also they kind of walk away going, oh, wow, I can actually apply this to things that I enjoy. And I love your intro about toxic fandom. And something I'm interested in researching more of is, what do we do when the creators of our fandoms go toxic? Like, how do we reconcile that as fans, especially in certain communities?
Yeah, because it's happened quite a bunch with Josh Sweden, for instance.
Yeah.
No one can say he's not a talented person, but he was found to be extraordinarily toxic. So it's like, what do you do?
Yep.
He still made some of my favorite movies, but it's like, oh, you kind of have to depend on them to realize the platform they have. I mean, J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter is the perfect example.
Right.
So many people had their childhoods wrapped around Hogwarts and Harry Potter and finding that place that you actually feel at home and where you're accepted, just to find out she's the biggest piece of trash around. So I think a lot of people are, while they're very, very upset at the bigotry, they're also very hurt because this was someone we thought understood, that we all kind of felt safe with, because she created a world that we found our comfort in.
Yeah, that in that world, I think another part that's confusing with Harry Potter in particular is that world is built on found family and love and support and resilience, and then the fandom even gave her multiple times to, like, wait, is that what you meant? No, but that's not what you meant, right? And then eventually it just got to the point where it's like, all right, we can't ignore it anymore. And there are other problems that have kind of come out within the Harry Potter world, as far as like how certain, kind of like in D&D, how certain groups are represented. Like it's been a while since I've watched or read Harry Potter. Not trolls, goblins, gremlin,
Uh,
the
the
bankers.
the banker, yeah,
Yeah,
the goblins.
right. I can't. My brain's not working
So,
today when it comes to those characters.
oh, it's that kind of day.
Yeah, it is. It feels like a Monday, but it's a Wednesday.
It's the Mondayest Wednesday of all time.
But I also, something I like to do in my practice is I love having tangible items that people can touch and play with and have tactile. Like you can see behind me, I've got a whole bunch of stuff on my shelf and different books. And so when I'm doing like running a therapeutic Dungeons and Dragons game or a tabletop role playing game, I like to have props they can play with. And so it's not just theater of the mind, it's also, there's a tangible thing they can interact with to enhance those experiences.
That's really
Okay.
cool. So it's really the whole therapy experience, but very much geek themed. Is
Mm.
there a certain character that you've found that works pretty universally with a lot of your clients?
Not any singular character because it really depends on the client.
Mm-hmm.
But like for instance, if I have clients who are into horror, we might use Saw and
Okay.
use some of the traps as metaphors for whatever their issues are. Like I had a client who we were working on anxiety, and so we used they really like the reverse bear trap in Saw, and so we used that as a metaphor for their anxiety and reminded them that they have um, the ability to unlock it at any time. So when they left therapy, I gave them a key just as like a going away
Oh,
present that they can wear and just remind themselves if it starts to get too tense, remember you always hold the key. Same thing like with Iron Man. Some see Tony Stark as a character they relate to. Some see Iron Man. And same with Batman. Is it Bruce Wayne or is it Batman? Like who's uh, the real person
who's
that
in
they're
charge here?
right.
Yeah. Well, that's really nice. That's I love how you have so many different themes. Have you found that this has helped you in your life?
Oh, 100%. It's actually I was listening to a comedian recently, Mateo Lane,
Mm-hmm.
who made the joke that if you ever want to find out somebody's sexuality, just ask them who their favorite X-Men character was. If it's Storm, they're gay. And I grew up and Storm was my favorite character. So it was like, hey, yeah, that's true. Okay. So,
That's I'm not gay, but
right.
like now that you say it, every person of the LGBTQ community has always gone for Storm or Dazzler. You're right.
it's I don't think that's founded in any scientific proof, but it does seem
But
coincidental that it.
yeah, that's
So,
that's very interesting. But so your favorite was Storm. That's a
yeah.
hell of a character. She's phenomenal.
And I don't even know if I realized as a kid what the character represented. She was a powerful character who was flawed and had like I remember she was claustrophobic and so even she's this goddess who can control the weather, which I always thought was the best power. Cause like I don't want to go to school, make it snow, or living in Florida, it's like I want cold weather.
Oh, I'm sure.
Uh, but it's I don't think I understood the nuances of those until later in life, and I was like, oh, I could see how these are. She's how she represents this power just beyond her mutant ability, right? She also
Hmm.
has a confidence about her.
She comes with so much depth. And are you currently reading any of the Storm comics?
I'm not. I fell out of the comics a long time ago because I didn't have the money to keep purchasing.
That's fair.
And then X Men is such a broad universe that I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
even know where to start
Well, they did
now.
just reboot it this past year, so it's all called From the Ashes. So
Oh,
if you were interested in getting back in it, that would be the exact time because it's all new.
oh,
From the fall of Krakoa, they restarted. There's new teams. Storm has her own series right now that's amazing to say the very least. But
oh, yeah.
everything they're doing is pretty amazing and they're tackling a lot of different issues as well. Like things that modern people are going through.
Hmm.
So I think you'd really dig it.
And have you seen Thunderbolts?
Yes, I was going to ask you about that next, yeah, actually.
So, I guess spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it. Although I just realized that the companies changed the name, which is
Yeah.
I get, but at the same time, like it just came out.
They
Anyway,
could have waited a week. They didn't have
right.
to do that. That was just. I just want to take over marketing for Marvel just for a week, and I think I'd have it back on track.
Well, the strangest thing about their marketing is that they don't have to market. They're so like Endgame. They could have just put up the title card of Endgame, and they still would have made $1 billion, right? Like people
100%.
were still going to go see that movie. But one thing I think Thunderbolts is a good example of where Marvel is hitting on all cylinders because the TV shows that came after Endgame, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, all did a really good job of bringing in mental health issues with those characters that were relatable. So it wasn't just about these powerful characters kicking butt. And Thunderbolts did that as well, where the villain really is depression, right? Is the void, the call of the void, and this darkness that just kind of keeps pulling at you. And all those characters are going through something. I do think it was a little too long between when we first met them to now, but um, I think it was a success because there was a depth to them that maybe the Eternals and Shang-Chi and some of those others were lacking because it was more about, oh, look, it's visually, it's cool, but there wasn't depth to it. And I feel like this film really did a nice job of connecting us to something we all might go through. And even Florence Pugh talked about on a talk show recently that she found help in her life by playing that character in Thunderbolts because she didn't realize she wasn't doing okay. And so it gave her permission to be like, oh, wait, I'm not doing okay. Let me talk about this. Let me talk to somebody. And that all came about through the story of, according to her, through the story of Thunderbolts.
I could definitely see that because you could see that Florence Pugh put so much passion into her performance of Thunderbolts. It had to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think her and Lewis Pullman, they were obviously the standouts, and their message throughout the movie hit on so many different levels. I left the movie thinking like I really needed to see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's seeing that kind of representation because you have Iron Man 3 where you see Tony going through his PTSD. You have WandaVision where you see her going through the steps of grief. But this, for me personally, was something I could relate to. And when I left, I was like, oh my God, superheroes can feel that too. It's like you're seeing all your thoughts put in a movie, and you're like, the words, you're not alone, finally means something because you get told a lot, you're not alone. You're not alone in all this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, that's nice, but you're kind
Right.
of alone in all that, dealing with it. And then you
Well, when
see
you
it and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not.
and when you're in the middle of it too, it's hard to see the help. It's hard to see
Mm-hmm.
your community. And some one of the best things a community can do, or your friends can do, or family, is just sit with you. Right. Sometimes it's not about solving a problem. That was the hardest thing for me to learn as a counselor was, yeah, that sucks. That's horrible. Rather than like, well, let's try to solve the problem. Um, it's oh, sorry, I had a thought. My ADHD just kicked in. See, as counselors also have those problems too. I
I
was gonna say something about that, and it just
I
left
do
my
this like
head.
every time.
Yeah,
Don't worry, it's okay.
but yeah, the that was something I loved about Thunderbolts was the idea that the people didn't die like when they were, or at least they looked like they did, but really they were kind of stuck in their own personal hell, which is what trauma does, right? We
Yeah.
spiral
Yeah.
down, and something has to pull us out. Um, that was the only my only qualm with the movie was I felt like it was a little anticlimactic uh, in the end. Like it felt like it happened a little like they went into the whatever the void area is. They found each other pretty quickly, and then they came out of it.
I think I could see that. I didn't personally find it anticlimactic because I related to it so well. And by the end of it, I think they played off this whole mystery of the asterisk, like what does Thunderbolt's asterisk mean? And it was finally revealed and you're like, "Oh, okay, so that's the main thing. That's where we're at."
Right.
But then they had the post-credit scenes too that showed that they really are going into this new team that they created in the Thunderbolts. And I'm very excited to see where they go. I'm excited to see how Yelena and Bob do with their ongoing mental problems. Well, not problems, but mental issues.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with Bob saying that he's can't be Sentry because of the void. That's what I'd like to see, where that control is of that void, which is the depression.
And I hope that's something they explore because I love that they put that in there that one can't exist without the other. But we don't want one to overtake. Like, we don't want the void to overtake the good.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll probably have to, and hopefully we see that, or something to that effect, where he's got to learn those coping skills. And how do you become one and acknowledge that the other one's kind of always present? So something that we talk about with our clients a lot is, because a lot of people sometimes come in and they're like, I don't want to feel this way anymore. Fix me, fix me. And it's like, well, I can't guarantee that this feeling will ever go away, but the hope is that we can maybe lessen the intensity of it. And I see that with Bob, right? So when it's so intense, he becomes this like, I need to cleanse the world of this because darkness is everywhere. But he's going to have to learn how to manage that, as we
I
all do.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think a lot of people go into therapy thinking, okay, I'm going to be fixed. And I think I'm sure it's not that simple. It's not, okay, I'll tell you, it's a breathing exercise. You'll get through it. It's so much work. And I love that you're making it to where it is a comfortable bit of work, something we can relate to, we can find comfort in. Because a lot of nerds, our comfort is these fandoms, are the comics, are the games, everything you're doing. So I think what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. And you said there's a whole community of you guys doing this?
Yeah, there's I got my certification through a company called Geek Therapeutics. There's another company called geektherapy.org. Um, I also got my gaming certification through Games to Grow or Game to Grow. I can never remember if there's an S. They're based out in Seattle. Um, so yeah, there's a whole community out there of nerdy therapists that all kind of come at it from different approaches. And something to also think about with geek therapy is kind of like when any new therapy model comes out, there's always kind of this, you know, tilt your nose up at it type thing. But we're not doing the traditional therapy, right? It's still rooted in evidence-based material. We're just kind of reframing it in a way to make it more accessible and relatable. Clients don't want to, unless they are a more academic person, they don't really want to quote Freud. They may not remember Freud, but they do remember their favorite Persona game or the character they built. I build characters with clients all the time in D&D to represent either a strength that they want in life or maybe a monster that they're trying to fight. So to kind of give them, again, something tangible that they can take with them.
Wow. So, how, I don't really know how to ask it. So, not all of us are involved with so many different fandoms. Is it hard to try to dive into a fandom to learn about it so you're able to use it in your therapy?
100%. Yes, it is. That was the other thing that I had to learn is I don't have to be the expert at everything. So you mentioned Joss Whedon earlier. I grew up as a huge Buffy fan. I wanted to be a screenwriter. I looked up to Joss Whedon. I've got comic books on one of the shelves. So his name is in big letters on the side of those. So I know lots about horror films, a little bit about X-Men because I grew up with that. I know almost nothing about anime. I wrote a book chapter for one of the psychology geek therapy books called The Psychology of My Hero Academia. And my chapter was on how metaphor was used in the show. And I had to watch a lot of it and do a lot of research because I wasn't up on that. I don't know why my Discord is going off. It's not even turned on.
Mine is too. Okay, good.
So
Mine went
sorry.
off a couple times too, and I was like, I have it on silent. Why?
Yeah, mine's not even on. Anyway. Um, so yeah, it's what I do with that when that happens is I will it sounds bad, use my clients. I rely on my clients to teach me, and that's been really helpful with teens or people who are resistant to therapy. I hope this doesn't like give away a secret, but if I don't know something and somebody doesn't want to talk, just asking somebody, how are you feeling? A lot of times you get, I don't know. But it's like, hey, what color is your lightsaber today?
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Based on your emotion. Oh, it's red. Oh, okay, let's explore that. Like, why is it red? It was green last week. What happened?
Yeah.
So sometimes coming at it from a different thing. And then if I don't understand it, like Personas, I bought the game because one of my clients loves Persona. And so I wanted to learn it, but I rely on them to tell me about the characters and kind of the lore behind it. So I just don't have the time to go through and like read everything and, watch and some anime. Somebody suggested One Piece to me, and I was like, it's like 700 episodes.
Oh no, it's like over 1,000
Right.
episodes. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely not. But I like that though. It shows you're learning from them too, and you're willing to go that extra mile to be able to relate to them on their level.
yeah, we only, something I have to remind myself a lot of, but I'll remind my clients too, is we have 50 minutes, 50, together. Maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, depending on the session, a week. All the work happens out in the world. So if we spend the session talking about the movie you saw and don't really connect it to anything, then that might be another week until we actually get. And sometimes that's what people need. Like, it's fine. My goal is I tout myself as I'm your player too. I'm along for the journey. I'm the guide in Zelda who is helping you along, but you're the one who has to go and do all the work. I don't want to push my interests onto you. I want to use your interests to help you. I might use mine as maybe a narrative structure to make a point, but it's not about me. It's about the person sitting across from me.
Wow, that's really, I really love that. I think what you're doing is such an amazing thing. I mean, I think the world needs therapy, like all of us do. But to see it in such a way, like I'm not a therapy kind of person, but I think I could do a geek therapy because I'm not into talking about emotions. I'm just not that way. Like you'll
Mm.
never see me cry ever. So, but I
Challenge accepted. I'm just kidding.
hey, let's relax.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not ready to pull off that band-aid yet. But I love what you're doing, and you've been doing it for so long too. It just seems like something the world needs because superheroes, nerdy fandoms, they're so mainstream now, which is an amazing thing because we're getting so much content for it now that's mainstream that your clientele just grows and grows, and there's no one in the world that does not have like one nerdy thing they cannot identify with.
Well, that's my first question to people is, what do you geek out about? And oftentimes, if they're not into comic books or games, they kind of hesitate and like, well, I don't know, I'm not really a geek. And I'm like, everybody geeks out about something, whether it's crocheting, cooking, golfing, gardening, comic books, doesn't matter. Whatever you geek out about, we can use. There's the traditional. I just turned into a pirate. There's a traditional geek world with games and comic books that we think about, but like, what do you geek out about? What's something that you enjoy?
Marvel,
All right.
obviously.
Do you have a
Um,
Marvel, like a favorite character or show or comic or?
uh, Spider Man is my favorite, with Daredevil as a close second.
All right. What did you think? I'm just curious. What did you think of Daredevil and She-Hulk?
Together,
Yeah.
I love them together. I really wanted Jen, not She Hulk, but Jen to come on to Daredevil Born Again for a cameo. I wanted to see her do the Walk of Shame as well. I thought that
Oh,
would be
yeah, that'd be
fun.
fun.
But I liked them. I liked them together. I thought they were very sweet. I liked how they changed his tone to fit just She Hulk show, which is comic accurate because
Yeah.
Daredevil has so many tones. But I like them together. I think they're very cute. And it's better than all the other ones in his show because they're all just, they're bananas. But I think
Yeah. No, I
she's
mean,
a lawyer and lawyer thing are really cute.
well, and even down to the walk of shame, like you mentioned, like in his costume, walking.
Yeah.
It was a nice flip on that scene, on that motif. So,
What did
but
you
yeah.
think of them?
Oh, same. I thought they were sweet. I didn't care for the show as much. Not for the reasons I think people would think. I felt like tonally went in a really weird direction, especially the finale just went in a weird, like,
Yeah.
breaking the fourth wall,
It was a
which I know
very
is comic
acquired
accurate,
taste.
but
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, there was something about it that just didn't resonate. But I love her,
Hmm.
and I would love to see her again. I didn't realize she was from Parks and Rec. That's where I first met her.
Yeah, that's where I first
Well,
met
not met
her.
her, but met
Yeah.
the
Everyone else, I think, saw her on Orphan Black, but I met her on Parks and Rec, and I was like, that's Tommy's girlfriend.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always great when good people pop up. So I hope some of those shows don't get sent to the void. You know, but
Yeah. Some of them, I'm like, you can take them. That's fine. Like, Thor 4, you can take that one. I'm
no, no.
totally fine with that. But She Hulk, like, come on. She's such a good character. Like, she's so much fun. I understand the show was you either loved it or you're like, why did they make the show? But it's like it's not going to resonate with every person, just like it shouldn't, just like every
Mhm.
comic or comic character shouldn't. We all have our preferences.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something I was going to say earlier with all of this, the stories and what people you'd ask me, like, how people are connecting with things, and we were thinking about the void in Thunderbolts. Is my tagline for my business, well, actually not my tagline, my kind of saying for my business is the stories we live are the stories we tell ourselves, but they don't have to be the stories that define us. And so the things that are in
Oh.
our past shape who we are, but they don't have to define who we are. And so your story is unwritten from this point forward. And you're going to be a different person at the end of this podcast than you were when you started. Right. And that's true, like, with my clients. You're going to be a different person at the end of this session than when you walked in. And so what's happening in the future hasn't been written yet. We don't know what that is. Um, so I think that's what Bob was afraid of, is letting his past define him. And so rather than embrace Century and being the hero, he's afraid of, and understandably so, his past experience, that those low lows he was talking about.
Yeah, he even in the comics he had such a rough life. You know, parents were abusive. He was a meth addict, all that stuff. And I think the movie did a. I'm so glad they didn't shy away from that because it made it feel so real. While
And
having him being lovable and like when I saw him, I wanted to adopt him. I wanted him to be mine, and they did such an amazing job with him.
and even when he's beating himself up, right? Yeah, he's
Yeah.
beating himself up, and they surround him and grab him and pull him off, and you see, like, that darkness. Again, spoiler alerts. I apologize if,
You're
but
fine.
it's been out for a week. What's wrong with you people?
I've already posted my
Right,
review. If
right.
you,
Okay.
it's cool.
But that darkness is, like, overtaking him, right? And again, his community comes, and notice they're not saying, "Are you okay?" They step in to help when he couldn't help himself. And then, like a lot of trauma, once it was over, he forgot.
That was very interesting. Is that usual? Like with trauma, people just forget about it and it comes up later? Or are they just pushing it down?
It can. It depends on the person, the level of trauma. I do a lot of work with dissociative disorders. So people
Okay.
who, like, dissociative identity disorder, like Moon Knight,
Ooh.
um, who, they have severe trauma. And a lot of times what will happen with that in particular, with DID, dissociative identity disorder, is a part might step forward to protect, in this case, like a kid who might be going through serious trauma, so that the the main part might take a step back and the protector part steps forward, so that the main part doesn't have to remember or take on that trauma, the protector part does. So we all dissociate, and we all
Hmm.
have different parts, but a lot of times in those, the parts fracture to a point of one might kind of step forward at times rather than be more integrated. It's more complicated than that, but that might
But
be a
you
longer show.
you explained it very well. So speaking of Moon Knight, what did you think of how Marvel interpreted Mark Spector and Stephen Grant and their? You said it was dissociated identity disorder.
Yeah,
Okay.
dissociative identity disorder. It used to be
Uh-huh.
called split personality
Yeah.
disorder, and I enjoyed it. I thought they did a really good job. There's I don't know, like uh, like a 50-50 split, but there is a division in how DID is presented in media, and a lot of times it's presented in a way that showcases people as dangerous. And what I loved about what Moon Knight did is they did a good job of showcasing the blackout. So he would black out, and then he wakes up. We don't really see what happens in the middle, but all of a sudden he's surrounded by like death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people, I would say probably 99%, I probably shouldn't put a percentage out there, so don't quote me on that, but a large percentage of people um, do not experience violence in that. Most people with a mental illness or mental condition are not violent people. Like schizophrenia is often presented that way too. Um, so he was just as scared and confused, but it makes sense from a narrative perspective that he's fighting these bad guys. He's not hurting good guys. So we also have to kind of look through the lens of what's being told. So I really enjoyed how they presented the blackout and the confusion and the fear of that because that happens. And I have permission to talk about this, but my partner lives with DID, and it took us a long time to realize um, what was going on. And there'd be times I'd come home and they'd be like, "I lost 4 hours today," and it could just be that something triggered them and a different part stepped forward, and they just don't recall what happened during the day. Um, so that can get confusing and frustrating at times, but it also has helped me kind of be a better communicator and learning how to ask, like, who am I talking to right now? Who stepped forward? Because sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't.
So, is there? I don't mean to pry, but this is just so interesting to me. So is there just like one personality that usually takes over, or is it multiple based on what triggered them or how they're feeling?
It depends on the person. Like for my partner, I know there's 11 parts that we've
Oh wow.
encountered, that I've encountered. I talk to at least 3 or 4 of them regularly.
Uh huh.
Um, but there's some really good documentaries out there. I can't think of any of the names right now, but I can send them to you if you want.
Yes, please.
Um, like one person had like 70 different,
Oh my
so
gosh.
it depends. It could also depend on the level of trauma as well.
Well, I hope for
You know.
whatever trauma your partner has gone through, I hope they're okay.
Oh, they're good. They're definitely. It's been a slow process, but the way I figured it, well, the way we found out is I was in class to learn how to be a counselor. And we had a speaker who lives with DID, and they started just talking about things, and in my head, like, well, that sounds like them. So I went home and said, hey, maybe you should talk to your counselor about this, um, and they did, and it all this kind of came out. It's like, oh, that makes complete sense. They're also autistic, and there is a in the neurospicy community. There's fandoms, geek culture is huge
Yeah.
in that world as well. So because a lot of times it helps people make sense of the world to
Yeah.
connect with something like a video game or music or.
Plus the hyper fixating
Mhm.
and like with comics, there's so many things to read, to learn about one universe. I get it. My oldest daughter, she's 5, is autistic, and we're just now getting into the she just learned the other day how many different iterations are of Spider-Man. So it's been a long couple days to say the least, but she's very very excited. So I get it.
Yeah, Spider-Man is a great example because there are so many different iterations, and with the Spider-Verse as well, so many people and kids have identified comfort with different, maybe with Noir or Gwen, different.
Yeah. My daughter identifies with, she calls her Ghosty. She's Ghost Spider, Ghosty. So,
I love it.
yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I learned so much, but I feel like I had my own therapy session.
All right, well, thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff, and if anybody wants to reach out and ask questions, please do.
Speaking of that, where can our listeners find you and reach out to you?
Sure. My handle on Instagram, technically on X, although I don't really I don't go on X. I keep it on there for business purposes because I can't cut the cord yet, just because I don't know.
Same. It's
Um,
you just post just for like new episodes or
yeah,
something, but I'm not engaging with those people.
but a storyologist is my handle. So it's like psychologist, but storyologist, a storyologist. And my website is www.storyology.care.
Okay, great. And whoever is listening to this episode, if you look in the show notes right under the episode, you will find all the places you can find Adam. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Vigilante Vibes. Wherever you're listening to this episode, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my amazing guests like Adam or any future episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a marvelous night.